was a car salesman for 4 years and sold close to 1,000 cars. And I've seen a lot of people massively overspend on a shiny piece of metal. But today, I'm gonna expose all the dirty secrets salespeople use to get you to spend your hard-earned cash. And I'm also gonna talk about how much you should actually spend on a car, the different finance options, and show you how to negotiate the best price no matter where you buy from.
I absolutely hated this when I was a salesman.
Owning and running a car is one of the highest monthly expenses people have. And with car prices going up and financing coming at a hefty cost, there's a lot going into the buying decision. So how much should you spend on a car? Well, this is ultimately your decision, but as a guideline, according to websites like leasing.com and Investopedia, you should spend around 10 to 15% of your net income on transportation. If you own a car, this should include the cost of the car, maintenance, insurance, tax, and repairs. So if you're on the average UK salary of roughly £35,000 a year, your take-home pay is £2,318 a month, so you should spend around £231 a month on car-related costs. Now, in contrast, a survey from 2021 by NerdWallet, back when everything was cheaper, shows that people were spending between £284 and £478 a month on average on car-related costs, depending on how they financed the car. My take on this is that if you want a nicer car, you should focus on increasing your income rather than just spending more of it. Call me old-fashioned. Okay, so once you decided to get a car, your first question might be, how do I pay for this thing? By far, the cheapest option is buying the car outright. Or is it? Buying a car cash avoids you having to fork out thousands in finance interest, but with the average car budget being somewhere between £10,000 to £15,000 here in the UK, it might take a bit of time to save the money. And sure, you could buy a cheaper car, but then you might run the risk of saving on the price spending on repairs. And if you already have the cash saved up, you might not want to blow it all on a car. The question you should ask yourself is, if I didn't spend my money on a car, what would I do with it? £10,000 could be enough to start a business or buy your first property, like it did for me. Link to that video in the description below. But if the alternative is keeping the money in the bank, losing it to inflation, or spending it on other non-essentials, you might be better off just buying the car. Now, if you want or you need to finance your next car, you generally have three options. The first one is a lease. In simple terms, this is the equivalent of renting a car for about 3 years, after which the car goes back to the finance company. This might be a good option if you want to change your car every 3 years and the monthly payments are your main concern. Leases are generally speaking the cheapest option when it comes to monthly installments, but the downside is that most dealers only offer this option on brand new or nearly new cars, so you might be forced to get a more expensive car than initially planned. You will also be charged extra if you go over your annual mileage allowance, and you'll also have to pay for any damage on the car after your term. The second option is a hire purchase. This is where you pay for the entire cost of your car on monthly installments, very much like a bank loan. This option works best for people that want to keep the car after the contract ends and are happy to pay more per month, somewhere around double the cost of the lease, for the benefit of paying less in interest. Of course, you can also just sell the car at the end of the contract because you own it at that point, and you can pocket the cash or just use it towards your next car. Pretty much every dealer will offer this finance option, even on older cars, and you can also compare finance providers online, which will give you more competitive rates. Cherry on top, you could also get a bank loan instead, and if your credit score is good, you'll get much better rates compared to dealerships. The third option, and the one that dealers try to sell you into the most, is the personal contract purchase. This option is similar to a lease, but allows you to buy the car at the end of the agreement for a predetermined price. We also have the options of returning the car to the finance company or just replacing it with a new one. A PCP will have a lower monthly cost compared to a hire purchase, and it's not much more expensive than a lease, but it gives you a lot more flexibility instead. This might sound great, but this is the most expensive option out of the three when it comes to the total amount paid, and the dealership has more control over your next purchase. Picture this scenario. You get a call from Chris, that charismatic salesman that sold you your car a few years back. You've been paying your monthly payments for 3 years and you're happy with the car. But he goes on to tell you that you can get a brand new car with a fresh warranty, with 2 services, with better features, and he can keep your monthly cost the same or less. How's that for an incentive? All you have to do is enter into another 4-year agreement, but that's okay, right? You already know you can afford that. It's kind of hard to say no to that deal. Somewhere around 80% of the cars I sold were on PCP. Now, I personally tried all of these finance options, and driving a new car lost its appeal after a few months. But I guess if I had to buy a reliable car, I'd get a low interest bank loan and buy a 10-year-old car with low mileage and good service history. Now, I'm curious which one of these options you think is the best. Let me know in the comment section below, and hit the like button on the way there, it really helps me a lot. Okay, so once you know your budget and you know how you're gonna pay for the car, you might have even done some window shopping online, it's now time to venture into the ruthless world of pushy salespeople and tough choices. But don't worry, this time around, you'll be prepared. So the sales process is pretty much the same in every dealership, regardless of it being a brand dealer or some guy in a field selling scrap metal on wheels. The first thing a salesperson will try and establish is whether or not you know what car you want to buy. Make sure you've done your research beforehand. Dealers will often try and push you towards cars they have in stock, or the ones that don't sell, or the ones that have the most profit in them. Trust me, your priorities are not at the top of their list. So go in with a specific car in mind and make sure you know roughly what financing it will cost you. It will be tempting to go over budget to buy a nicer car, but the goal should be to get the nicer car and keep it in budget. And it's the dealer's job to get it there. So once the dealer established that you're here to buy and you're not a tire kicker, aka you're not going to waste their time, they will then offer you a test drive. They do this not because they want to make sure you're making an informed decision, but because they want to get you excited. Bums on seats sell cars is an expression that dealers used for decades, but there's a reason for that. When you start negotiating, you're using the left side of your brain, which is the analytical or logical side. Once you're in the car driving it, experiencing it, the features, the comfy seats, the new car smell, the right side of your brain takes over, which works on intuition, visualization, and feelings. This makes you a lot less worried about the costs and a lot more likely to overpay to get what you want or what you think you want. So a simple fix here is to decline the test drive and ask to look at the numbers first. I absolutely hated this when I was a salesman because it messed up my whole process and it made the buying decision a logical one rather than an emotional one, which made it a lot harder to close the deal. But as a customer, it's within your rights to mess up my process. Now, if you want to test drive the car before you look at the numbers, maybe you want to make sure it's the right car for you, never show enthusiasm during or after the test drive. It's a bit of a performance act, but whenever I had a customer that got excited about driving a car, I knew I had them in the bag and the car was as good as sold. Their excitement told me that I didn't really need to discount the car at all in order to get it sold because they already bought it in their minds. Now, speaking of numbers, if the dealer offers any financing, the next question you'll be asked is, what's your monthly budget? This allows them to impose onto you the fact that you'll be buying the car using their finance, but it also allows them to quickly calculate how many useless extras they can add on the deal and still keep it in the budget. But more importantly, it gives them a way to close the deal. Listen closely. A good salesman will always give you some variation of the following phrase. You test drove the car, you clearly loved it, you told me your budget is X. If I somehow manage to get the payments to fit your budget, and I can't promise that I can, but if I do, will you buy the car today? At this point, you'll be thinking you're getting a great deal if you're buying today, you're excited, and you'll most likely go for it. They might even throw in some paint protection and alloy wheel insurance in the deal for you, aka charge you extra and add it into the monthly payments. But to avoid this situation, simply ask the dealer what rates they offer for finance. If you know you can get better, tell them not to waste their time with giving you a finance quote. It's going to be a lot harder for them to incorporate useless extras into a deal if it's not on finance. Now, if you want to finance the car with them, tell them you want to discuss the cash price first. And also, with most big dealers, you can actually get the exact finance figures and the rates through their website. And if you want to see what difference a discount would make to the monthly figures, just increase the deposit by what you think you can get off the price. You could then just take this monthly price to the dealer and tell them you'll buy the car if they can match it without increasing the term or the deposit. But if you haven't done much research into the figures, don't give them a budget at all. Just ask them for the price and negotiate from there. Some people hate haggling so much they would rather overpay than go through the experience. Just get out of your comfort zone. You work hard for weeks on end to make the money that you could literally save in a matter of minutes by just talking to a stranger you don't really care about and you're most likely never gonna see again. Always negotiate. Okay, but what about buying cash? How much discount should you ask for? Ideally, just a bit more than they would be willing to accept. You want them to say no to your first offer. That's how you know you squeezed everything you can out of the deal. But as a more practical guide, I'd recommend asking for about 20% off when buying from a professional used car dealer that will give you a service, a health check, and a warranty with your car. They normally spend a bit more to prepare your car and they often have less profit to play with. Now, when buying a brand new car or you're buying from a shady garage or even a private seller, I'd ask for 30% off. They'll probably say no to you initially because if they gave that sort of discount to every customer, they wouldn't be in business. They'll give you a counter offer, which is absolutely not the best deal they can do, even if they'll tell you so. You'll then go back and forth until you get to a point somewhere in the middle and they'll extend a hand to shake on it. But here's when you deliver the masterstroke. I want you to then say this: hey, thank you for offering me this discount. I'm not going to shake your hand on it because it's still a bit more than I wanted to pay. So I'm going to go and have a think on it and maybe see a couple of more cars, and if I'm interested, I'll give you a call. You'll then start to see the smile on their faces fade away. The worst thing for me as a salesman was a customer wanting to go away and think on it. It reduces my chances of getting the sale by like 80%, which is insane. When people go away, they often overthink, or they'll go for a cheaper option, or their parents will tell them it's not the right time, or whatever. So in this situation, a dealer would normally do one of two things, and very rarely a third one. First, they will try and convince you of the scarcity of their product, like their discount only being available for today, or tell you the car is so special they've got so many customers waiting to buy it. That's all BS. Failing that, they will try the second thing, which is the outcome we're hoping for. They'll ask, what would it take for you to buy the car now? They're basically closing you again, which means they can offer you a bigger discount than they said initially. If they couldn't, this conversation wouldn't happen, so here's your chance to get even more money off. Now the third thing that can happen sometimes is they let you walk away. Now this means they can't discount the car any further, or they think they can sell it for a profit to somebody else if they just wait. Not ideal. In this case, you need to walk away even if you're happy with the discount you negotiated so far. Just hear me out. You'll want to say something along these lines. I appreciate you can't discount the price any further. I will head off to see a couple of more cars, but here's my number. If anything changes, call me and I can place a deposit over the phone if you can get to my price. Then just leave. You're basically telling them that it's a done deal if they can get to your price, which is very tempting for a car dealer. Cars that stay on the lot for too long cost dealers a lot of money. Now they'll usually stop you before you get to the door. They might call you 10 minutes after you leave. But if they don't and you still want the car, you can always call them back after a few hours and reserve the car over the phone. At least then you know that's the best deal you're gonna get here. And that, my friend, is how you out-negotiate the dealer. And as I was editing the video, the perfect example of a negotiation landed on my lap. I'm in the process of selling a car and, as any good salesman, I overpriced it. A few days ago, I got a message from someone offering to come and buy the car cash if I gave them 30% off. This would mean selling the car for its actual value. Now, as opposed to a car dealer, I'm not in a rush to sell it. It's one of my friend's car and he would rather have it around for a few more weeks, so I told him I can't do that price, especially after doing some work on the car and changing the tires. I basically explained why my car was overpriced, but what he wrote back was textbook negotiation. He goes, "Not a problem. I have to see 2 other cars next week, so I'll probably buy one of them. If you change your mind, please let me know." He's basically telling me he's got other options. He's also telling me he's happy to walk away if I don't give him the discount. And he's also telling me he's ready to buy it if I do. This is what I would do if I was negotiating. Now, he might not end up buying my car, but whatever the car he gets, he's definitely getting a good deal. If I was looking to sell the car fast, I would have told him I'd be happy to consider an offer if he comes by to have a look at the car. The old take it for a test drive trick would have made him emotionally invested. And although he still would have gotten some money off, it would have been a much smaller discount than he asked for. Now, if you're like me and you're interested in making money, you'll want to watch this video here, in which I invested in property instead of spending on a new car. The results I got so far are pretty insane. Check it out and I'll see you in the next one.